Hello, welcome to our series of videos on mutual funds. Do you want to know what mutual funds are? Do you want to buy in mutual funds? Do you want to invest in mutual funds? Do you want to know how to become rich with mutual funds? Do you want to achieve your goals, your dreams with help of mutual funds? Then this series of videos are for you. So let us explore the world of mutual funds. So, there are two main parts in which this presentation is divided. In the first part, we'll look at the theoretical aspects of mutual funds, in which we try to identify what mutual funds are and why to invest in mutual funds. We'll look into basics of mutual funds, what are different scheme types of mutual funds, certain terms which are commonly used with respect to mutual funds. SEBI, which is the topmost government body which authorizes investments, creates regulations with respect to mutual funds. We'll try to know what rules SEBI has made with respect to investments in mutual funds. And then we'll see what is the mutual fund KYC. And we'll also see some important links which will help us improve our learning or understanding of mutual funds. In the second part, we will see an online demonstration of different kind of transactions in mutual funds. We'll first see how to identify a good mutual fund online. We'll then see how to create a lump sum investment in a mutual fund. We'll then create an SIP in mutual fund and also register the SIP with the bank online. And finally, we'll see what experts have to say regarding investments in mutual funds. What are their tips? What are their tricks? So we maximize our profit. So let us begin. There is an online blog which we have created. The link of the blog is onlinesahihai.blogspot.com. You can visit this blog and you'll find many updated information regarding mutual funds. This video will be available on this blog. We'll see presentations in more than 10 Indian languages. But before we begin, a small disclaimer. I'm going to talk to you in very general terms. I'm not going to use exact technical terms. I'm not going to give definition of certain terms which are going to be used. Okay? But this is going to be communication in general terms so that a common person can understand. The information which I'm going to share with you is subject to change as per rules and regulations which are made by SEBI time to time. So before making any investment, please see to that you refer to the latest documents and make the proper decision. So we are not into selling of services. We are not going to sell you any product. We are not going to advertise or promote any product intentionally. We are doing just for the sake of sharing knowledge which we have gained and from which we have benefited. We also want you to have that benefit which we have got. So let's begin with the first part, Right, so let's start with a very basic question, which is to why to invest into mutual funds. To answer that, let us look at the traditional instruments of investments which we have been seeing for so many years, which probably our grandparents and parents told us. Okay. Very common, very popularly, which is used is a savings bank account. Okay, where we get a rate of interest of around 4 or 5%. Okay. In certain cases 6%, but not more than that. Then the second very popular option is fixed deposits, FD, okay, which again give you rate of interest of 7-8%. PPF, Public Provident Fund, which again may give you percentage 8% or 9%. Then there is National Savings Certificate, which gives you around 6 to 7% rate of interest. Now the questions which we have to ask is that, are these sufficient? So these are normal major expenditures. I'm not going to talk to you about the small expenditures that of course will be there. Okay, but we are considering only the major expenditure after one is married. Okay, so generally the cost of raising a single child, that means if a child is born today till the time he is married, okay, so his education costs, his health costs, fees, schools fees, college fees, other fees, okay, higher education fees, and so on, everything included. Okay, right from his birth to his marriage. Okay, if a child is born, okay, then according to certain reports from highly respectable agencies, the cost is going to be around 1 to 1.5 crores. The second major cost is the cost after you retire, and which is going to be around 3 to 4 crores. That is for a person who is today around age of 25 years, and he or she will be retiring around 60 years, and from his or her 60 years age onwards till the time of his death, which probably could be 20-25 years, considering an average Indian lives he lives up to the age of 80, 75, 80. So if you consider 20 years after retirement, the costs with no salary and with all the higher medical expenses, costly medical expenses, the cost will be around 3 to 4 crores. And this is something which you need to accumulate during your working years, right? Of course, there could be loans, home loans, car loans, other loans, which are major costs, which you have to bear. And there are two main villains to this story. First, of course, is inflation, and second is tax. Now, tax is something which we have to pay on our income, that is as per the government rules, and which is very valid, and we have to pay. Inflation is what? So let me give an example to make you understand this. In 1990s, the cost of 1 liter of petrol, 1 liter of petrol in market was around 9 rupees, 9-10 rupees. In 1990 it was 9 or 10 rupees. In 2021, the cost of the same 1 liter of petrol has gone up to 100 rupees. And why so? Why so? What has changed? The product is same, the processing is same, other costs are same. Maybe the tax has increased, but still there is an increase by around 10%, 10 times, 10 times the cost what we had to pay for the 1 liter of petrol in 1990. And what is the main reason? Who is the main culprit? The answer is inflation. The answer is inflation. Okay. Now, if that is what we need to pay for, then in that case, the real returns, the actual returns which we get, our savings bank, our FDs, our NSCs give us certain returns, but the real returns, the actual returns which we actually get, will be then equal to what is expected or stated returns minus your tax minus your inflation. Okay, so will be paying tax, there will be inflation which will be eating into your money, and that has to be subtracted from your expected or stated returns. Okay, so 4%, 5% return annually which we are going to get, from that we need to subtract the tax percent, the inflation percent, and that will give us real returns. So we need to have significantly positive real returns, the actual returns, and not what we stated with the FDs and the bank accounts. So now the question is that what options we have to generate those very high positive real returns. Stock markets, yes, that is an option. However, most of us are not so knowledgeable about how stock market works, what stocks to buy. Okay, and therefore it is not easy for a common man to consistently, regularly get good returns. It's not easy. One can, but it's not easy. We need to do a lot of hard work to generate good returns consistently, that is. So what option we have then? We have the option of mutual funds. Okay. So let us understand whether the mutual funds will be able to give us significantly higher positive real returns. Okay. Before we go to that, let's understand what mutual funds are. That too in very simple terms. Okay. So we do not understand stock market, but there are experts who do. There are experienced people who do. And what this experienced people have done is that they came together, they form a company, they registered themselves with SEBI, they then created products which are referred to as mutual funds, and they will be investing our money in stock markets. So what we do is we give money to the mutual fund companies or this mutual fund people. We invest into mutual funds, and these experts who manage the mutual funds will be then investing this money in good companies. Okay, and we'll get those returns based on the profits which these companies make. Of course, we need to pay certain commission for the services which these companies offer. Okay, but that is very less compared to the returns we generally will make. Okay, if you go back into history and if you look into the returns, the history of index or Sensex or any kind of stock market, if you look at the returns which were achieved in last few years, okay, on average the returns have been around in between 11 to 13%. In certain years it went beyond 15% also. 15% also. In year 2021, rather 2020 to 2021, there are certain mutual funds which generated returns of more than 100%. Let me repeat, of more than 100%. That means if you had invested 10,000 rupees 1 year back in any of these mutual funds, you will have got another 10,000 in just a span of 1 year without doing anything. In just a span of 1 year, and these are significantly higher returns which can take care of all those major expenditures which we are going to have. Okay. And therefore it is wise to invest into mutual funds. If you do not know stock markets well, but if you still want good returns, very good returns, then mutual funds are really good options. Now let's look at A little theory of mutual funds before we try to understand how to decide which mutual funds are good and how to invest in these mutual funds. Okay, so let's look at certain scheme types. Okay, they're basically major level categories of mutual funds. Okay, these are topmost category level of mutual funds. First is equity. So what are equities? Any mutual fund which belongs to the scheme type or a category of equity. Okay. In that mutual fund, whatever money which you invest, most of it will go into stocks of company, buying stocks of company, right? And that makes these stocks or mutual funds volatile. Okay. They are subject to frequent changes. They are risky, but they also generally give very good returns, very good returns. This is something which is preferred for young people, okay, less than age of 45, that is. Okay, they can take risks. They, assuming they are working, they have other sources of income, so they can risk some amount of money in this kind of mutual funds, and they must. Okay. The second category which is there, major category, is the debt category. Okay, now if you invest money into a mutual fund which belongs to a debt category, the money will be mostly invested in stable instruments like bonds, government bonds, which are less risky compared to stocks, company stocks, but they provide lesser returns compared to equity mutual fund. Generally, that is the pattern. Generally, okay, less risky and less returns, lesser returns, and this is a preferred option for people who are in their 60s and above. Okay, those who have retired, those who want stable returns, do not want to risk their hard-earned money, they should go for this particular category. There is also a third category which is actually a combination of or mix of what we have in equity and debt. Okay, so what happens is that any mutual fund which is in this category, okay, will have certain portion, maybe around 50% of investment going into equities or stocks, and the rest 50 going into debt. Okay, that proportion may change based on the type of mutual fund, but yes, okay, so it is kind of balance of both, some part of equity, some part of debt, and this is preferred for those who are in the age range of 45 to 60 years, those who do not want to take too much risk and who are nearing their retirement age. They should go for this particular category. The fourth major category is solution oriented. Now here we have mutual funds which are designed for specific policy or specific intention. Okay, in this we have three subcategories. One is retirement funds. As the name suggests, this is meant for mutual funds which will accumulate money for your retirement. Okay. Then there are children fund. These are funds which are meant for children. If you want to save under an for children, then in that case you can invest into mutual funds which belong to this subcategory. And third is insurance plus funds, wherein you get combination of both insurance and investment. Two major points which I want to make here. First is, it's not that you need to have a mutual fund belonging to this policy specific category. You can invest in a non-policy specific mutual fund, just a regular mutual fund, and still accumulate money for your retirement or invest for your children. So you need not buy a fund just because it belongs to a category. No, need not. If the performance of the fund is good, then you can invest in that fund. Okay, if you want to target a particular objective and you find a particular fund which is good, whether it is policy specific or not, you can invest in that fund. it is not compulsory that you invest into a fund which is belonging to this policy specific solution oriented category. Okay, that is the first point. The second point is that you must never ever mix up insurance and investment. If you want to buy insurance, buy an insurance specific policy. If you want to buy, if you want to do investment, do only investment. Do not mix up, because if you mix up, the cost will increase and you will not get benefits as you would have got if you had invested in investment separately from in your insurance. Okay, so buy insurance separately and buy or invest into products separately. Do not mix up things. The last category, the last major category is others, which actually includes two subcategories: index funds and fund of funds. So what are index funds? Let me give an example to make you understand. So yes, so we have stock markets like Bombay Stock Market, stock exchange, wherein the stocks are listed and they are transacted, they are sold, they are bought. Okay, and there are companies which whose stocks are there, and these companies have value. These companies also are ranked according to either their market capitalization or the type of service or domain they work in. Okay, so there could be a index of all banking companies. So HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, it is a banking companies, and there could be list of these bank companies. So then we could have a special index or a list which consists of only bank companies. And if there is a mutual fund which is based on this index, this list of banking companies, and if you invest certain money into this mutual fund, then most of your money, 95% of your money will go into the buying stocks of this banking companies, because you are invested into a mutual fund which is based on an index which is based on or which is collection of banking companies. Okay, so index fund basically is a list based, a specialized list based investment where we have certain companies grouped into a list, and when you invest into a mutual fund which is based on this index, then your investment goes into this particular companies, majority of it, 95%. The second category is fund of funds. Basically what we have is the basic principle is that there are funds which mutual funds which invest into another mutual funds. Okay, that could be a variety of reasons, so we'll not go into that, but yes, we have gold fund in this category. So if you want to invest into gold but do not want to buy physical gold, which actually is a very good idea, okay, then you can invest into a gold fund. Okay, and this very well maps with the cost of the gold, so you will be able to get the same benefit as buying a gold. In fact, it is far better than buying a physical gold. If you want to invest into international market, but if you cannot do so directly because of rules and regulations, then you can buy into or invest into international funds. These are funds which are going to invest into international markets. Okay, so those also belong to fund or funds category. Now let's look at certain terms in mutual funds which are very commonly used with respect to mutual fund transactions. The very first is a lump sum investment or a purchase. Now what is this? This is a one-time investment which is done to buy or invest into a mutual fund, and it has no relationship with any transaction, prior transaction or any post transaction. It is simply an independent transaction. You transfer certain money from your bank account to a mutual fund, full stop. One time investment. So that is a one time investment or a purchase. If you want to withdraw money from your mutual fund and transfer it to your bank account, then what you do is you redeem your money, or redemption of your money. Okay, so you redeem your money, that transfers the money from your mutual fund to your bank account. This can be full redemption or partial redemption also. Switch. So let's suppose you have two mutual funds in a same company, and you want to transfer money from one mutual fund to another mutual fund. Okay, not from your bank account but from one mutual fund to another mutual fund. And that can be done using a switch. So that transfers certain amount of money from one mutual fund to another. Next, we come to systematic investment plan, or SIP. So what is this? So let's suppose you want to invest into a mutual fund on regular basis, but you don't want you to be present every time to do that transaction explicitly. You do not have the time to do the transactions. So what you do is you start a SIP. So what SIP does is this: once you have created a SIP and you have registered your SIP with a bank, then automatically on regular basis certain amount of money which you have mentioned when you created your SIP, a certain amount of money is transferred from your bank account to your mutual fund on regular basis on certain date which you have also mentioned when you created the SIP. Okay, so that money is transferred regularly. You need not be present. Okay, it's like paying your regular bills on regular basis, monthly or maybe weekly or whatever. Okay, and that is done automatically. You need not be present to do the transaction. One very important point here: people stop SIP, which is very much allowed, very much legal. There is nothing wrong in that. Okay, they stop an SIP. Now, stopping an SIP means that there will be no more transaction from your bank account to your mutual fund. That means no more money will be invested from your bank account to your mutual fund. But that does not mean that whatever money which is already invested will be transferred back to your bank account. No, that money remains invested. So if you want to withdraw that money, then of course you need to do a redemption. Stopping an SIP only stops any further investment from your bank account into your mutual fund account. Okay. Next we have STP. STP stands for Systematic Transfer Plan. This is a periodic switching of money on periodic basis, similar to SIP, but in case of STP, the money goes from one mutual fund to another mutual fund, and in SIP it goes from your bank account to your mutual fund. As we have STP, we also have Systematic Withdrawal Plan, SWP. This is periodic withdrawal. Okay, and that means your money is withdrawn from your mutual fund account from regular basis, from your mutual fund to your bank account. The next term is of course regular. Now what is a regular investment? So let's suppose you approach an agent and who guides you regarding investment, and then you make an investment into a mutual fund via that agent. Then that becomes your regular type of investment. Okay, agent or a broker. Okay. Now herein there is one thing which you need to know. The agent will be charging additional commission for his or her services. The second option is direct, wherein there is no broker involved. You directly approach the mutual fund company, either going to their offices or via their websites, and you buy their product. You invest into their mutual funds. There is no broker involved, and therefore there will be no additional commission charge on you. The only thing is that now you have to identify which is the best mutual fund for you, and which something we will be seeing in the second part of this video. So you will be learning that also. There's also something called as investment advisor or financial advisor. Now, as per the rules of SEBI, these advisors will only advise on investments. Okay, they will understand your goals, your intentions, uh, financial assets, liabilities, and they will advise you which funds to buy, which product to buy, how to balance your investment. Okay. And that is something very good, and it is advised that you consider the services of financial or investment advisors, because every person's case is different, and therefore uh, you need to go with certain specific advices which may be best suited for you. Listening to this video or to your friends may not give you the best advice suitable for you. There will be general ideas shared, but something could be better for you, and that is why it is advised that you should seek services of a financial or investment advisor. However, remember that a certified financial or investment advisor is not allowed to sell you any product, which means that he cannot charge you any additional commission for the services which he gives. He can charge you, he or she can charge you one-time fees. Okay, he or she is allowed to do that, but his name, his ID, his number will not be associated with your investment. Okay, that is not, so you will not be paying him any additional commission when your investment matures. That is something which should not be the case. So see to that, when you are seeking the services of financial advisor, pay him or her one-time fees, but do not involve him in any investment. Just know what is best for you, and then go to the mutual fund company or their websites and then buy the product. Next term is dividend. Now, what is dividend? Okay, so let me give an example to make you understand. So let's suppose you invest 1,000 rupees today in a mutual fund, and you select an option of dividend while making the investment. And after in a duration of 1 year, your investment makes a profit of 100 rupees, right? After 1 year, I mean, if you opted that you should be paid a dividend after 1 year, it could be monthly, it could be weekly based on the company, it could be also annually. So let's suppose you opted for payment of the dividend after 1 year. So after 1 year, that 100 rupees which your investment has made, a profit of 100 rupees, will be transferred to your bank account automatically. Okay, and the 1,000 rupees which you already have invested as a principal amount will be reinvested. But only the 1,000 rupees. The 100 rupees profit came goes to your bank account. However, if you go for the next option, which is the growth option, what happens is that you have invested principal of 1,000 rupees, you make a profit of 100 rupees. Next year, your 100 rupees of profit is added to your old principal amount, and then that 1,100 rupees will be reinvested as principal amount only. So your next year principal amount is going to be 1,100 rupees. Earlier it was 1,000, next year 1,100 rupees. Now those who are wise, those who have been investing in mutual funds, from the experience and what experts say, growth option is or should be the preferred option. You have to make your money grow. Okay. Keep on investing till the time you can, or till your goals are achieved. Let your money grow and maximize the benefit of investment. Okay. Do not transfer your money to your bank account unless and until you require money on regular basis. Some retired people may require so. Okay. If you do not require, let it be reinvested, let it grow, and that will maximize your returns on investments. Next three terms: large cap, mid cap, and small cap. So as already said, companies are listed onto stock market and they have their valuation uh, with respect to market capitalization. Okay, that means basically the cost of company, the cost of the entire company, okay, whatever resources they have, and this could be based on the stock market stock value. This could be based on the stock value. Whatever these companies are ranked based on their value, based on their value. So let's say a company like Reliance could be a 1 lakh crore company, TCS 90,000 crore. Just an example. Okay, Infosys could be a 80,000 crore company. Just an example. This may not be the real numbers. Okay, so in that case, Reliance will be the first company, first top rank company. TCS will be the second rank company, and Infosys will be third rank company. So similarly, there are many companies which are there which are listed based on their market value. The first 100 companies which are there in a stock market, those as per SEBI form the large cap category. So these are companies of large cap category. First 100 companies based on their market value. From 101 up to 250, whichever companies are there, or those ranks, which companies which have ranked from 101 to 250 fall into the mid cap category, and companies which are ranked from 251 onwards will be the small cap companies, okay. So this is how these companies are categorized based on their market value. Now we'll be discussing about the rules regarding the percentages of investment. I have summarized the details which are there, but if you want to look at the original rules, the original document on the rules of investment, then I have mentioned the SEBI circular number. This is the circular number which you can refer to for making the investment. So here what we have a table which lists out the subcategories of the equity scheme type funds. We have some 12 subcategories. Okay. We have multi-cap fund, we have large cap fund, small cap, flexi cap, and so on. So let's take an example to make us understand what these rules are. So let's suppose you invest into a mutual fund which belongs to the equity large cap fund, okay, or the large cap subcategory of the equity scheme type. Now if you do that investment, then the mutual fund will invest or have to invest at least 80% of the mutual fund corpus into large cap companies. Now we already seen what large cap companies are. These are the first 100 rank companies. So if you invest into a large cap mutual fund, then 80% of the corpus has to go into buying stocks, equities of these large cap companies. Rest 20, that freedom the mutual fund manager has. He or she can invest into any mutual fund, any other mutual fund, or any other type of investment, but 80% has to go into large cap. Well, let's suppose if you buy into a mutual fund which belongs to the small cap subcategory of equity scheme type, then in that case, as per SEBI rules, at least 65% of the mutual fund corpus has to go into buying stocks of small cap companies, which are companies which are ranked from 251 onwards. Okay. So this is how these rules are applicable. Okay. There are two special categories which I will like to refer to. One is ELSS, equity linked saving schemes. And what are the rules here? First is that if you invest into a mutual fund belonging to ELSS category, then minimum 80% of your investment or the corpus accumulated in the mutual fund has to go into equities, which means it can go into buying stock of large cap or a small cap or a mid cap or any company which is listed onto a stock market, but buying equities, that is 80%. And the investment will be locked for 3 years. The investment will be locked for 3 years. You cannot withdraw that investment for 3 years from the time of investment or from the date of investment. But this particular category or subcategory gives you tax advantage. Whatever amount which you invest into this particular category, subcategory, can be shown under the 80C criteria of your income tax returns, ITR. There is the 80C criteria which allows you to have tax concession up to 1.5 lakhs, which means that if your income is 10 lakh rupees and if you invest in some 1.5 lakhs into 80C criteria clause, then your income tax will be calculated not on 10 lakhs but 10 minus 1.5, 8.5 lakhs. This is a very simple rough example which I am giving. But yes, this is how it will work. And here you can make an investment into a mutual fund belonging to ELSS category and will get benefit of the 1.5 lakh rupees concession. Right, so there is a tax advantage. You save on tax. One of the villains of this investment story, you save there, and plus you make investment, so you get benefits of investment and plus you save on your tax. But remember, the money is locked for 3 years. The last category and probably the most appropriate category based on investments into equities is flexi cap, wherein minimum 65% of mutual fund corpus gets invested into equities. This could be any company. The advantage here is that the mutual fund manager of this mutual fund belonging to this category or subcategory will have the flexibility, and that is by the name flexi, okay, to invest into any percentage of amount into any company of any of a large cap or of a mid cap or of a small cap. That flexibility is there. So if today small caps are doing good, the mutual fund manager will invest more money into small cap. If tomorrow mutual funds if large cap companies do well, then the manager will invest more money into a large cap. So that flexibility is there, and that is why it is one of the most popular subcategories when it comes to equities. Okay, there are no constraints. Only 65% of your mutual fund corpus has to go into equities. Next, we'll look into mutual fund subcategories of the debt scheme, not in detail though. Okay, as already said, there are rules, and the rules have been specified. Okay, either the minimum amount of investment as well as the period of instruments in which the investment has to be done. Okay, two interesting subcategories are the liquid fund category and subcategory and the ultra short duration. These are stable, there is less of volatility, and this can be very much used along with your equity mutual funds. How? Well, markets are volatile. Sometimes they grow very well and sometimes they fall. Now if you read newspapers, if you read articles of experts, you may get some idea regarding the future directions of the market. And if you are of the opinion that the markets may fall tomorrow and you do not want to lose a lot on the profits which you have made, you have two options. One, of course, is that you withdraw the money back to your bank account, but then you will have to pay some exit charges, right? And if you want to reinvest, then that may take time. You may not be able to reinvest at the appropriate time when the market, from the point from which the market may grow in future. Okay, so that is a disadvantage there. The second option is that instead of withdrawing the money, you switch or transfer your money to a ultra short mutual fund or a liquid mutual fund. There, because you are not withdrawing the money, you will be not paying taxes on the profit which you have earned first. Second, you will be able to switch back again to the equity mutual fund when the bad times have passed. So that flexibility you have. So that is why you must use these two funds, ultra short duration fund or a liquid fund, along with your equities, to minimize your losses. So there are good reasons to use these two subcategories mutual funds. These are the full forms of the terms which I mentioned in the earlier slide. Next, we come to the third category, hybrid scheme. As already suggested, is the balance of debt and equities. So accordingly, the subcategories are created. So if you look at a balanced hybrid fund, so if you see 40 to 60% investment into equities, minimum 40, maximum 60%, and to debt 40 to 60%, so minimum 40% and maximum 60%. That flexibility is there with the mutual fund manager, but he cannot go beyond 60% in either equity or debt. We also have dynamic asset allocation or balance advantage fund, wherein there is a dynamic management between equity or debt. Okay, and here the mutual fund manager tries to balance, but also tries to optimize the investment to maximize your profits. Then we looked into solution oriented. As already seen, there are two subcategories, either three, but I am against mixing of investment and insurance. That is why I purposely not mentioned the third category, subcategory. But there are two subcategories mentioned: retirement fund and children fund, and there are no minimum investment criteria, so mutual fund manager can invest into anything. But only thing is that the money is locked for 5 years or the age of retirement in retirement fund. In case of children's fund, it will be at least for 5 years or till the child attains adulthood, okay, crosses 18. Okay, that is those are the only criteria. Those are the only two criteria. In others, what we have is we have the index fund or ETFs, wherein minimum 95% of investment goes into that particular index or list of companies which are put together with certain criteria. And of course, in funds of funds, you have gold funds, international funds. Again, 95%, minimum 95% of investment goes into the underlying funds. Right, now we look at the mutual fund KYC. Before you start with the investment to mutual fund, you have to have a mutual fund KYC. KYC, know your customer. As we have it for banks, if you want to have a bank account created, you have to do a bank KYC. Similarly for mutual fund. Okay, so what things are required to do a mutual fund KYC? Of course, you need to have a new mutual fund application form, then photocopies of your Aadhaar card, self-sign, bank account. Preferred is a private bank account, because when if you are doing mutual fund transactions online, you will receive many OTPs, one-time passwords, and certain government banks, these OTPs are delayed, and then you cannot proceed with your transactions. So it's preferred that you have a bank account with a private bank, okay, which, and the advantage is that you can separate your mutual fund transactions, or in general investments, from your regular transactions, okay, not to mix, so you can keep account of how your money is getting spent, and you do not waste your money, which otherwise you would have invested into mutual funds. So having two different accounts, one for investment and one for regular transaction, daily transaction, something which is preferred. Cancel check of the bank account with your name printed on it. There has to be your name if you are going to create a mutual fund account under your name. Some mutual fund companies also ask for bank passbook photocopies and PAN photocopies. This have to be self-signed, self-attested. Okay. Now then go to a mutual fund office. I am saying mutual fund office, and register there. Okay. You have to go to a mutual fund office. If you go to a bank of the mutual fund company or to an agent, in either cases you will be charged additional commission. Okay, so it's strictly advised or instructed not to approach a bank or mutual fund agent to register yourself. Don't do that. Approach a mutual fund company. uh, you may have to visit this mutual fund company or their offices. There are branches of the mutual fund company. You can directly approach there, visit them once only, and once the application is done, you need not visit them again. Okay. uh, there are some company which also do KYC online. That is also an option. So yes, you can do so. Okay. If you have been trading in stocks, you do not have to do this step. Your KYC is already registered. And one more thing is that once you do a KYC with one mutual fund company, you can use the same KYC across other multiple companies. These are some important links which you can refer to. First, of course, is of SEBI, uh, and a related website again of SEBI. Uh, Other very important websites where you can learn new things, improve on your knowledge, and improve on your investment, and of course, reap the benefits of doing wise, sensible investments. This is where we end our first part of this video series. We'll be in this next video, we'll be talking about online demonstration of finding a good fund, and doing a lump sum and SIP online. Okay. So thank you.